Welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to show you a bot that I made that compares dates. Quickly about me, my name is Erik and I'm the owner of shackledevelopers.com and I'm the owner of Shackle Company, and I have a lot of programming experience and I recently started programming Discord bots, so I'm going to share some knowledge with you. This video is a tutorial on code only basically, but I could quickly mention that I'm using Visual Studio Code and that I have installed the latest version of Node.js. And I'm not going to show you how you create the bot on the Discord. I'm going to show you the code and explain what the code does. So basically I'm going to explain to you about the bot that I created. So first we need to go through what packages I use. So the packages I use are npm install discord.js-save. That's the first package I use. The second package is npm install date time. Let's see if that's correct. No, it is node date time --save. That's the only package I use. Let's actually go through the code, how it works. So first I create a const discord, which requires the discord.js package, so we can use the API and all the methods or functions that exist. Then we create a client, new discord.client method or function. So using client we can actually access like on ready, on message. And then I created an array with commands. The first is commands event owner. So let's start Discord and I'm going to show you how it looks. Right, now I'm in my Discord where I test my bots. And if I run commands, I actually have two bots that uses the commands, so ignore that. Follow this bot, the clan event bot. You see it's a list of current commands, event, owner, and obviously commands. So the owner command is basically credentials or like advertisement. And the event, it says that the next event is this date, this time GMT. And the event begins in 96 hours and 0 minutes. So this bot tells you how many hours and minutes there is left until the event begins, and then a short message of what the event is. This bot is actually used in my other Discord. So if people use the event command, they know exactly when the next event occurs. So this is live, this is not a test, this is a live bot that I host on my server. Let's actually go through the code. On ready, when you start a client, which I'm not going to do because I actually have it hosted already, it just types to the console that a bot is logged in. And then client on message. Here, this function is going to be called each time someone types something. So even if I type hello, even though nothing happens, this function is run because this function runs each time someone types something. And the first thing I do is that if the message is equal to the first item in the array, which is commands, I'm going to print this message, which is basically what I did before. Or if the message is the second item in the array, which is event, I'm going to do a lot of things, a lot of calculations. And I'm not going to show you my token. So else if the message is equal to owner, or like the third item in the array, which is owner, because array starts at 0 index. So basically 0 index, index 1, and index 2 at the bottom here. So what happens if you type event? First I require the package. Then I create a variable. Then I create a variable that stores a static date. So this date is what the event is at. And then I create another variable with the same date for calculation. So then I format one of the clan event dates, the first one, which is going to be displayed. So this is the date that is displayed right here. This is the date that we're not going to modify. And since my server is in Sweden, I'm +1 GMT. So what I need to do is that I need to change the hour 1 hour ahead, so I get the proper calculation, because otherwise the calculation is going to be 1 hour off. Because this calculation is based off GMT, so this is a GMT value, and in order for me to actually achieve that on a Swedish server, I need to modify the date and give it +1 hour during winter time. In summertime I have to change this to 2. So wherever you live, you have to check the time zone and add that here. If you are -5, yeah, then that's fine. But it depends where your server is. If your server is in Sweden, then you have to use 1 wintertime, 2 summertime. Then I format the modified date. So I basically have the date, but I change one of them for the calculation. And then I want to create the current date, and then I want to format the current date and save that in a new variable. And here you actually format the dates so you can use them for calculation. And the calculation basically returns the date difference in milliseconds. So what happens here is that this date has certain milliseconds, and this other date has also certain milliseconds. So that's how you have to compare dates, is that you have to format them so you can actually calculate the date in milliseconds. And it's based off a certain date back in time, which I'm not really aware of. But it is going to work the way it should. So this date difference is going to be a large number in milliseconds. It's going to be minimum a few hundred million. This value is going to be minimum a few million milliseconds. Right here I create 2 variables. One is hour in millisecond, minute in milliseconds. And what I've done here is that in 1 hour you have this value in milliseconds, and in a minute you have this value in milliseconds. So what I do then is that the date difference holds a millisecond value, which is the difference between these 2 dates. So if since it's 1 week difference, it's going to be a certain amount of milliseconds, and you can calculate these hours and minutes left with a calculation. Then I create a variable called hours left. I do math.floor. The milliseconds divided by hour in milliseconds. So this is going to return the amount of hours that is until that date. Because remember, milliseconds is how we compare dates. And then I want a reminder. So I take reminder is equal to the total milliseconds, then minus hour left times hour in milliseconds. So this is going to remove most of the milliseconds and only leave a few. And the milliseconds that are left is going to be calculated into minutes. And then I have a few console logs here that actually console logs some things when I tested. So you have to use console log a lot to test your code. And then here I create a new array. And the first is the event date, format event date, if you remember here, up here. This one, format next clan event. So that is the date when the event is actually going to take place, which we have not manipulated further. But then we have another message that's going to say return how many hours and minutes left there are. And these have a value depending on like the milliseconds divided by how many milliseconds there is in 1 hour. So you get the hours, and the same for minutes. And then this text will be edited each time a new event is going to start. You can basically read these comments if I have a bad explanation when I speak. You can actually read all of these comments up here. And here I'm actually checking depending on the hour left value. So if the event has recently started, so let's say you type the exclamation mark event and the event has been live for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours or 1 hour, it's going to say that the event has started, and it says the event has already started, Carp Mass on King Westor's world. So if you are late to the event, it's going to help you and tell you which world it is. Or if the date difference is more than 0, so this means that the event has not started, I'm going to send these messages over here. It is going to return the date when the event is going to take place, the hours and minutes left, and then a message saying what type of event it is. So if none of these two are true, and let's say that the event is 5 hours late, it's going to return the else message which says there is no current event to be tracked. Because if the event is 5 hours, if the event happened 5 hours ago, you basically missed the event. And then of course I have this message. So if you type exclamation mark owner, it's going to return this nice message with 2 links. So that's basically how this code worked. If you did not understand some parts of the code, I would say that you should send me a comment, because I'm not the best speaking about the code. But you can read these comments. I hope I made these comments so they make sense. But overall, you format the date, and then you compare the 2 dates in milliseconds, and then you run calculations, finding out how many hours and minutes there are left, depending on how many milliseconds there is in 1 hour and 1 minute. So I think that's everything I wanted to talk about with this bot. Yeah, so it returns the date of the event, which is static. This is not static because this compares the dates. So you can see if you type the event again, you see it changed. It's now 95 hours and 49 minutes, and this is correct. You have to remember that when you compare the dates, you have to remember where your server is, where you host the project. Because if you are in the US and you host your application in Europe, it's going to be very different when it calculates the time. Because this method, this one, var date right now, is equal to datetime package.create. This saves the current date and time in a variable, plus GMT, my server location. If your server is in the UK, it's the same value as GMT during winter and +1 during summer. Hopefully this tutorial or code tutorial for Discord was helpful for you. And I would like to say thank you for watching and good luck with your Discord bots. My name is Erik Peterson and I'm from shackledevelopers.com.